Hello YouTube, this is Shooter. Join me as I paint the minis from Wildlands. Today I will be painting Edith from the guild. My original idea with these videos is to show that painting board game minis can be accessible and fun. So with that in mind, my challenge is to paint the whole game with nothing more than what would be considered a starter paint set and brushes. This is a paint set I picked up a while ago. I haven't tried any of these AK 3rd generation acrylics yet, so I picked up this set to give them a try. In theory, a set like this from any brand should hopefully be a good starting point for anyone looking to give mini painting a try. So this will be a good test. There's a nice range of colours, and I'm looking forward to giving them a try. As for the brushes, I usually use a sable brush. For example, this Da Vinci Maestro size 0 has been my workhorse for more than 7 years. It does 95% of the work on my minis and it is still going strong. But a good sable isn't cheap when you are starting out and trying things out. So I picked this set up of reasonably priced Vallejo synthetic brushes. The set has 3 brushes, a size 0, 1 and 2. Good sizes for mini painting, and this will be another good test. Now, onto the painting. Here I will be starting with a black primer. Previously, when using speed paints, I started with a white primer or a zenithal prime, as those paints are designed to go over white. With traditional style paints like these, it can be good to start with black. That way we can leave black in the deepest recesses. I'm using an airbrush, but this can be done with a can of matte black spray paint. I used brown rose for my base skin tone and mixed it with light flesh to create my highlight colour. Now that I have my skin tone sorted, I apply them to the mini, starting with brown rose for the base and then highlighting with the mixed colour. If I was painting a mini for a dedicated miniatures game, I might spend some more time here highlighting the face by adding more depth and trying to draw attention to it. Faces are where I see the biggest difference between board game minis and dedicated miniatures games. While sometimes the detail on board game minis can be nearly as good as those other minis, it is often the faces where I notice the lack of detail or refinement. This isn't always the case, but it definitely is here. It could be the difference in materials not holding the detail, the scale, this one is tiny, or just mass production process of board games in general. So to combat this, I will try and hide the face a little by limiting the detail I paint onto the mini and emphasizing other areas. Edith's artwork shows her wearing black under her purple cloak, so I am mixing Imperial Blue with black to create my base color. This will be the deepest color, it will look almost black, and being blue, it will work with the purple. I paint her clothing and hat with this mix before highlighting with Imperial Blue. It may sound counterintuitive, but trying to paint a black colour with blacks and greys can often lead to the result looking grey rather than black. I mix a little bit of magenta into the Imperial Blue for the final highlight. Adding white or light blue at this stage is just going to make the final result look blue. Hopefully this helps keep the overall dark tone that I'm looking for. I use black red as the base colour for the hair. When I picked this game as the next one to paint, I was excited to paint some brighter tones after the darker tones of Skyrim. Then, for some reason, I think I chose the mini with the darker scheme to paint first. Now I'm using medium rust to highlight the hair. It will give a nice contrast to the black-red base. Next, the base coat for the cloak is done with deep purple. This needs a couple of coats to get a nice even finish. This is a nice big surface and I am using the number 2 brush, but the purple is a little translucent, so a couple of coats will be required to cover the black primer. I mix a little bit of Imperial Blue from before into the deep purple. This will give me my shadow colour. I'm using a wet palette which helps keep the paints from drying out, giving me a longer working time. I then paint this into the recesses of the cloak. This is thinned a little more than the base layer, as the added transparency will help it blend with the purple. It's at this point in the editing that I realise the recording is overexposed. While I've managed to hopefully make it watchable, we can't really see the shade I'm painting in here, but it will be visible on the finished mini. I used the black red from earlier on the broom handle, and then I applied burnt umber to the bristles. The boots were painted in neutral grey before I gave them a black wash. The black wash was created by adding a few drops of water with the brush to black paint to thin it out. This is then just applied over the boots and broom. And that's it. Here's a reference photo showing the scale difference compared to what would probably be considered a standard size mini. Most of the time the techniques are the same for these smaller scaled miniatures. They might just have a little less detail, like a fingers on the hand. That can sometimes make it simpler to paint, or it may also present its own challenges. That's all part of the fun. So far, I'm enjoying this paint set. The colours I have used so far have done what I want them to, which isn't always the case. For a smaller starter style set, I think the colour range is good. There is enough variety to cover all the different colour schemes I'll be painting with this game. The only colour I would add so far is a medium red, like a blood red. That should be the same for any starter set. They hopefully give a beginner somewhere to start, and then they can add a colour here and there to fill out the collection. I'll have some more thoughts on the paints and brushes next time. Until then, thanks for watching.